Good afternoon, everyone. It's Wednesday, December 13th, 2 p.m. This is the Madeira Beach Board of Commissioners meeting. City Attorney, will you provide the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance?
Happy to, Mayor. Father in heaven, we ask for your special blessing this Christmas season and all those assembled here today. We especially pray for the well-being and health of people throughout the world who are suffering from conflict, illness, hunger, and other human tragedy. May all men and women who are less fortunate than we are ever be in our hearts during this season. This we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Rostek,
Present.
Vice Mayor Kerr,
Here.
Commissioner Taglerini,
Here.
Commissioner McGeehan,
Here.
here.
Thank you. Next, can I get an approval of the agenda?
Like to make a motion to approve the agenda as written?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner McGeehan,
Yes.
Commissioner Taglerini,
Yes.
Mayor Rostek.
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
Okay. Next up is proclamations. I don't see where we have any there. And then under presentations, I'd like to read this letter that we received. This is from the Government Finance Officers Association in Chicago, Illinois. It's addressed to the mayor. We are pleased to notify you that your annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ending in September 30th, 2022 qualifies for the GFOA's Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. This Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management. When a Certificate of Achievement is awarded to a government, an Award of Financial Reporting Achievement, AFRA, AFRA, is also presented to the individuals or department designated by the government as primarily responsible for having it earned the certificate. This award has been sent to the submitter as designated on the application. We hope that you will arrange for a formal presentation of the certificate and award of financial reporting achievement and give appropriate publicity to this notable achievement. A sample news release is included to assist with this effort. We hope that your example will encourage other government officials in their efforts to achieve and maintain an appropriate standard of excellence in financial reporting. Sincerely, Michelle Mark Levine, Director, Technical Services. Well done, Financial Officer.
Appreciate it, team effort, and really thank the finance team for helping collaborate and get everything together, as well as the auditors for doing their part in assisting with the ACFR preparation, getting it out on time within the deadline. So it was another successful year, and we anticipate the same for this upcoming year.
Well done. All right, next up is public comment for any items that are not on the agenda. If you would like to come forward now, we'd love to hear what you have to say. Please come up.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Happy Price. I live at 13319 Boca Ciega Avenue here in Madeira Beach. I'm also the chairperson of the Board of Trustees for the Gulf Beaches Library right across the street, our little gem in Madeira Beach. And I just have some news because I haven't spoken to you guys in a couple of months, which is probably a good thing, laying low. But we are having an event, and Claire is passing out the flyer right now, on January 25th, which is a Thursday evening from 5 to 8. It's a grand reopening of our cute library with all the improvements done. We're going to have light refreshments, complimentary beer and wine, gift baskets, and a silent auction. I've approached Madeira Beach fundamental school to get their string quartet there or whatever they've got going. I know I've heard those kids before. They're really great. So we'll have some live music. But the funnest thing about that night, and I hope you all can go, is back in 1968 when the library expanded, in one of the columns inside the library, it's like a stone column, they planted a time capsule. So we're digging it out, and we're going to expose it at 7:30 that night, and we'll see what they put in it, what they thought was important in 1968. So 55-year-old time capsule. And we will also be requesting, when it gets a little closer to the time, that people start thinking about what they want to put back in the time capsule so we can put it back in that column in such a way that we don't have to like sledgehammer it out. But anyway, it should be a really fun event. All the towns are participating. All the trustees, one from each town, or two from each town, really, with the alternates. We're all working really hard to get the baskets together and ask for sponsors and whatnot. So anyway, I'll be here saying this from now till January 25th, just so that you all and everyone in TV land hears me. Another fundraising event we're having, because we don't want to keep relying on the towns to fund an increased amount every year, is if you've ever been to the library, you know that there's that reading patio out back. That's kind of an outdoorsy space. Well, we're hoping to turn that into, well, it's usually closed because you don't want people coming into the library that way. It's a very low wall. So we're hoping to use that in a broader way, so that when it's nice outside, people can go outside and read. And part of doing that is we have a brick fundraiser where you can do a commemorative brick. And I'll have one of those next time you see me from Madeira Beach. It's $100. So you have 3 lines of like 20 characters per line, and you can, dedicate it to your deceased loved ones or live loved ones or dogs or whatever you want. And there's some clip art you can even put on there. So I have that flyer in front of you as well, and I'm going to ask the city manager if we could put that up front. I'll put it in a nice thing, and then when I'm done making my tour with the brick, I'll bring it up front. But we're having a good time over there now, so it's calm, and everyone's working together really good, and that's it. Just thought I'd come and give you an update and let you know what we're doing.
Thank you kindly. I'll make sure that we get it up on the city's website to the city manager.
That would be great.
I'm sure he'd be
all the
happy to
towns
do
are going to be doing it, and we're all like in competition who can bring in the most sponsors and things like that. So the bigger, the better.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Happy, before you run away, how did you find out the time capsule was in the column?
Just through a conversation with Stanley one day, who is our interim director of the library, and who's pretty much running the place right now.
So if Stanley...
He just had to, we're talking about, hey, let's do a fundraiser, let's get some money in here to do some additional things, because now we're on a roll, right? And he just happened to mention that he and Vince, the previous director, were trying to find it, and that they had drilled a hole in the column and put a camera down in there, and they saw it, and it had a rope around it, and there's supposedly some way that they could pull it out the top. And I'm like, oh my God, this is priceless, It was supposed to be opened after 50 years, but no one did anything about it. So as soon as I heard about it, wait a minute, it's 55 years now. So it was even funnier to me. So I think we just keep it going every 50 years. It was just kind of came out of his mouth. And I'm like, so now we're building the whole event, the whole evening on this unveiling, We're laughing about finding Jimmy Hoffa and everything else. But I mean, it's just a fun thing. And I thought it would be a really good one to kick off. And hopefully this is an annual thing, and we'll grow and grow. And maybe we won't be having to come to you and ask for $93,000 next year.
Thank you.
Great job, thank you.
Yes. Is there any other public comment for items that are not on the agenda? Come up, sir.
Bill Gay, 423 150th Avenue, Madeira Beach. And I have some slides I think they're going to put up. And
Okay. Who's supposed to be putting them up?
Clara's taking care of it.
Oh, okay.
We just received them very recently, so we're going to try to get them up.
Okay. Let me make one announcement that I should have made earlier, and that's about the application for a liquor permit for the Barefoot Beach Club has been pulled from the agenda. They have pulled the application. So if anybody is here in regards to that, the application has been pulled by the facility. I guess I should have talked slower.
Do you have a paper copy of them?
I don't have one I can hand out. I could start going through it. I think
go-
there's some
Yeah.
graphics in it you probably want to look at, would make it much more understandable. Some of it's a little bit technical.
I see this counts towards his 5 minutes.
Well, I took a couple seconds of it with my disclaimer about pulling up one permit. Ma'am, if you're here about the Barefoot Beach permit, that was pulled by the applicant. Okay. Sir, was it on a thumb drive?
I sent it over to Clara as a PDF file,
Okay,
so that should work.
maybe.
I would just encourage to proceed. We'll try to get paper copies. We cannot get it up. We'll see if we can get it up on the screen. We usually can't do it within a few hours of the meeting, so I would encourage anybody in the future to send them at least the day before if you want to display something or bring paper copies. So please proceed.
Yeah.
Do you want to postpone this for a few minutes or go on to your other business and come back to it?
We
That's
really-
up to you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, we really can't come back to it, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Can you go ahead with what you have?
Yeah, I can run through some of this stuff, yeah. So this deals with the lawsuit, and I wanted to raise a couple issues about the lawsuit on the Madeira Beach Town Center projects. And one part of that happens to deal with the Cambria Hotel. And I have a picture in here of the Cambria Hotel, what was approved as the, in 2017, as the layout of what the project was going to be like, and the, basically the plan for what kind of building was going to be on the plot. Some of that has changed over time, and as a result of that, the impervious surface area has not met the criteria for the city. In other words, what they've done is eliminated green space over there at several areas. So some of the green space that was eliminated was along the, if you look at the building, on the left side of the building. It's currently now behind a fence. That was probably reduced by at least half, concrete poured over. If you go to the back of the Cambria, they extended the parking deck. They put a tandem parking deck in, extended that deck, and that, again, ate into the green space. The other thing it did on that side of the back of the building is it reduced the setback there from about 10 feet, which is required, down to 3 feet. So that's gone. It doesn't meet the requirements in terms of setbacks. The same thing with the setback on the left side of the building. Minimum setback on that building, on that lot, on the small side of the setback is 20 feet. The setback on the left side of that building, looking at it, is only about 10 to 11 feet. So they've, cut back on the setbacks there. The bigger issue is with the Tiki Hut. The Tiki Hut is on the right-hand side of the building, looking at it, and it's a fairly large structure that takes up a good bit of the green space on the right-hand side. So what had been a building that was proposed in compliance with the setbacks is no longer in compliance with the setbacks. So what happens when you make major changes like this on a building, particularly in a PD development, you have to go back through the approval process, and that was never done. So there are a couple ordinances that you should be aware of that affect this. One of those ordinances deals with the fact that you must, let me get my notes out here. Well, it's section 11047 of the code. Tom should be familiar with this. It's a major level of development review required. Whenever you make major changes or any changes in a PD, you have to go back through the review process. And that was never done here. There are several steps in that that are laid out in the ordinance. You have to have a neighborhood workshop. You have to have a pre-application technical review. You have to have a public meeting. You have to have a planning commission review and approval. And if there are any variances included in this, then you have to go through the special magistrate. None of that was done. So they substantially changed the project, but they never went through the required review process to get it approved by the city. And what has happened is that the city has issued permits for the Cambria without going through that review and approval process. You're out of compliance with section 11047. The other thing you're out of compliance with is that, let me read this to you. This is section 11050. Tom should be familiar with this, and I don't know, hopefully he would have briefed you on this issue. Amendments to approved development plans. This is a PD, it's approved development plans. After a final development order has been issued, it shall be unlawful to modify, alter, or otherwise deviate from the terms of the conditions of the order without first obtaining an amendment to the approved development order. Amendment of the development order shall be made in accordance with the process of development review. None of that's been done. So the tiki that we have over here is a major problem because it takes a good bit of the green space up. But it's also in violation of a couple additional parts of the development ordinance. I guess, I don't know, you've seen the building over. It's a pretty huge building. It comes up to the third floor, partially up on the balconies on the third floor. So it's an accessory structure. And there's rules about accessory structures on how big they can be. Maximum size for an accessory structure is 8 feet by 12 feet by 8 feet. It's about 768 cubic feet. If you look at the monstrosity that's been constructed over there, it's somewhere around 30,000 cubic feet. That is, in violation of the code, and it never went through the review process. The other problem with the accessory structure over there, and this is I don't have the code. Well, let's do section 110, 326B, maximum 10-foot separation between structures. So you can have a main structure and one accessory structure on a lot, and there's supposed to be a 10-foot separation between those. If you looked at structural columns over there, there might be 3 feet. When you put the tiki roof on this thing, it's jam-packed up right against the building. So, it's not compliant with that part of the code also. What's really disturbing about this is this never went through the planning process for review. I guess you could have put it through the planning process and went to the special magistrate for variances on the size of the building and also the setback requirement and also the requirement that it interferes with the green space.
Sir, you have 1 more minute.
Okay. But that was not done. So here you have something for a requirement, for a review process that was never accomplished. And then DeSantis has gone on and issued a permit for it. I have no idea how you're going to issue a CO for this construction over there, this accessory structure, when you've never gone through the approval process and gone through both the Planning Commission and also through the Planning Department. And I don't know how you're going to do it. So this is one part of the lawsuit. There are other issues in the lawsuit also in regard to the impervious space. That's been reduced substantially, and there are also some problems with the figures that the developer was citing when they went for the approval of reduce the amount of green space on the property. It's got major problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else have public comment? Yeah, please, you can go back up. His time clock got askew, so we had to give
I'm going to
him.
be 45 seconds.
That's fine.
I just think it's very rich that the very same person that's complaining about the lack of green space around the Cambria Hotel is the very same person that filed lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit, forcing the Cambria to be shorter and wider. Had we allowed, maybe not the original plan, but the second plan or the third plan that was brought up before this commission in order to be built, we'd have 40 feet of green space. We'd have beautiful palm trees lining the gateway to our city. It would have been just beautiful. So 3 feet, 10 feet, no concern of me as a citizen of Madeira Beach. I personally have been watching that tiki hut go up and thinking, ooh, what's going to go in there? This is a beach town. Let's enjoy it and have a nice beach community and a beach feel to it, and not always succumb to the lawsuits that keep coming from one individual in this town. That's all I'm going to say.
All right, thank you. Is there any? No. I'm not going to allow that. I'm sorry. Does anybody else have any other public comment on items that are not on the agenda? Okay. Public comments now closed.
Could I ask a question?
Yes,
Just
ma'am.
because I'm curious. Robin, when we receive something from a resident, in this case, the resident provided something that they wanted to go on the screen, and it did not come in a timely manner where we could make that happen, can we not let them know that before they come so that we
Sure,
don't have this type of
We can do that.
instance?
It's just kind of given that that's the case, but we'll remind
Okay, because I
everyone.
mean, with all respect to Mr. Gay, he came here thinking that it would go up on the screen, and there was
It's
not.
up on the screen now.
But there wasn't enough time, and then,
Understood.
so if we could do that, that would be great.
Sure, certainly.
All right, thank you. Okay, so then public comment will be closed then. Okay, consent agenda. We have anything there?
I think you have 2 items to approve, minutes of regular and workshop meetings.
Yes, we do. Okay, item A.
Well, I believe we
You can
approve them as.
approve them both as
both
one.
at the same time. I'd
Okay.
just like to make a
Motion.
Okay.
unless-
Do we have a motion to approve both of those?
Unless someone has any objection to the minutes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Okay, thank you. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Taglerini,
Yes.
Commissioner McGeehan,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes,
Mayor Rostack.
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
All right, thank you. Next up is public hearings, ordinance 2023-34. City Attorney?
Yes, Mayor, I'll go ahead and read that ordinance.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2023-34, an ordinance of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, providing for ballot title, ballot question, and text for a proposed referendum question to be placed on the March 19, 2024 election ballot, providing for an amendment to the charter changing the qualifying period to the first full week in December instead of the first 2 full weeks in December, providing for the election date, providing for coordination with the Pinellas County Supervisor of Elections, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict, and providing for an effective date thereof. That was the second final reading of ordinance 2023-34 by title only. It was first read on November the 8th, 2023. There have been no changes since the original reading.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this? All right, commissioners. Do we have a motion on second reading?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-34.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes,
Commissioner Taglerini,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner McGeehan,
Yes.
Mayor Rostack?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
All right, thank you. Next up is ordinance 2023-35.
Thank you, Mayor. This is ordinance 2023-35, an ordinance of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, creating Article 6, restrictions relating to smoking in or on public beaches and public parks of Chapter 58 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Madeira Beach to establish restrictions relating to smoking in or on public beaches and public parks, providing for purpose and definitions, providing for prohibition of smoking in or on public beaches and public parks, providing for exceptions, providing for posting of no smoking signs, providing for penalties, providing for conflict, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. That was the second and final reading of ordinance 2023-35 by title only. It was first read and approved on November 8th, 2023. There have been no changes since it was originally read.
All right, thank you, City Attorney. Is there any public comment on this? Okay, public comment is closed. Commissioners?
I think it's been fully discussed, and I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-35, smoking restrictions on public parks and beaches.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you kindly. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Kerr?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner McGeehan?
Yes.
Commissioner Taglerini?
Yes.
Mayor Rostack?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
All right. Next item, item C, ordinance 2023-19, definitions to be consistent with Fort Pinellas, second reading and public hearing.
Mayor, Commissioners, this is ordinance 2023-19, an ordinance of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, amending Section 82-2 definitions of Chapter 82, general provisions of the city's land development code to add definitions for commercial business service use, commercial recreation use, institutional uses, mixed use, net land area, non-residential use, office use, personal service/office support use, public educational facility, recreation/open space uses, residential equivalent use, residential use, retail, commercial use, storage/warehouses/distribution, light, transportation/utility uses, vacation rental use, and working waterfront. To revise the definition of multifamily under the definition of dwelling unit, to revise the definitions of floodway floor area ratio, FAR, and impervious surface ratio, ISR, providing for conflict, codification, and severability, and providing for an effective date. That was the second final reading of ordinance 2023-19 by title only.
All right, thank you. Is there any public comment on this? Okay, public comment is closed. Commissioners?
Again, I think we've gone over this quite a few times. It's a second reading. I don't have any questions.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Kerr?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Taglerini?
Yes.
Commissioner McGeehan?
Yes.
Mayor Rostack?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
All right, next up is ordinance 2023-21, dune protection and beach debris. First reading and public hearing.
This is ordinance 2023-21, an ordinance of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, amending Article 3, beach debris of Chapter 42, offenses and miscellaneous provisions of the Madeira Beach Code of Ordinances to amend the purpose to include commercial property in the definitions, add commercial property and provision relating to blocking pathways to obstructions on the beach provision, require property to be stored inside during a named storm event, include commercial property and leave no trace informational signs in rental units, add prohibition regarding crossing dunes and the removal of vegetation on dunes, providing for conflict, severability, and codification, and providing for an effective date. That was a reading of ordinance 2023-21 by title only.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this first? All right, public comment is closed. Commissioners?
So this is to amend an already existing ordinance, is that correct? Is this just to give the sheriffs more to work with in enforcing these, or? these problems.
And I think
Yes, it is. The Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, the deputies that are here that do our code enforcement, they approach planning staff, and they were saying that they were having issues with enforcing the commercial things on the beach, as well as disturbance of the dune systems. So they discussed with St. Pete Beach, who has been doing a phenomenal job of being able to enforce on their beach, and so they advised planning staff to input that similar language so that they could better enforce on the beach
Great.
area.
Makes perfect sense.
I
I'm
agree.
surprised it's not already in here.
Only question I have on page 3 of 7, paragraph E. It shall be unlawful to block or cause to be blocked any means whatsoever, any pathway leading to or from a public beach. The potential issue I see is they can block their own, but that's illegal?
This is what they had in St. Pete Beach, so this is what they advised us to put in. But it's really blocking any of those pathways to the beach so that they cannot block those pathways. So think of the walkovers or any of the areas that you get from the street to the beach.
Do you think to cover all the bases, we should put public walkways? Because right now, it's left as generic, so it could mean their own.
That
What do you
could be-
think?
that could be put in.
What do you think, commissioners?
Are you suggesting that they would not have the permission to block their own, like on their own property, to get to the beach? Is that,
Well, I think he's just trying to circumvent that.
To circumvent the potential
Yeah.
issue that right now it says any pathway.
It'd be any
So
public pathway.
I see a potential legal issue there that we're telling them they can't block their own.
but they should be able to, is what.
Well, they shouldn't be blocking their own anyway, I mean, for
They
safety.
shouldn't
But to
be.
keep people from going onto their property, you can put it, I mean, it's your property, you can put a gate, you can put, so we can add the word public if that's, you want to amend it just to add the word public.
Couldn't hurt.
So if say for instance, a hotel has a homeless person who blocks their pathway, if we put public, can the police enforce the pathway being blocked on private property?
No,
That would be trespassing in that case, wouldn't it?
it could be,
I believe so, yeah.
but I think that's why they left it this way
This
for the
way,
example you gave.
So that it could be public or private
It's
property,
intended to
they'd have
keep
no
people
problem.
From the pathways.
from blocking just access points. So, your choice.
Yeah, just some food for thought, that's all.
If I may add into that, so if you allow, hi, Megan. If you allow them to block off their access ways, then you're ultimately then pushing people through those dunes in which we're trying to protect. So we don't want condos to block off their pathway, if that makes sense.
It does, thank you.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards leaving it like it is.
After what Megan said,
Yeah.
I concur.
Sure.
Okay, that was the only question I had.
I'd make a motion.
In that case, I recommend that we amend the Madeira Beach Code of Ordinances to include similar language to St. Pete Beach's Land Development Code to better equip the deputies to protect the important dune system and marine wildlife.
Yes.
I would just ask you to make the motion to approve the ordinance as written in case there is some significant difference between St. Pete Beaches and the one that you're looking at tonight. So it'd be a
I
motion.
move that we approve the ordinance as written.
I second that.
City Clerk, could we call the roll, please?
Commissioner Taglerini?
Yes.
Commissioner McGeehan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kerr?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Mayor Rostick?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
Next up is ordinance 2023-22, future land use element to be consistent with Forward Pinellas, second reading and public hearing.
Mayor Commissioners, this is ordinance 2023-22, an ordinance of the City of Madera Beach, Florida, amending policy 4.1.1.1 to incorporate the provisions of policies 4.1.1.2 and 4.1.1.3 of the future land use element of the comprehensive plan of the City of Madera Beach to reformat each land use category into a matrix, include the countywide planned land use categories, and include allowed uses consistent with the countywide plan, renumbering policy 4.1.1.4 to policy 4.1.1.2, providing for conflict, severability, codification, and providing for an effective date hereof. That was the second and final reading of ordinance 2023-22 by title only.
All right, thank you, City Attorney. Is there any public comment on this? Please come up, sir.
Bill Gay, 423 150th Avenue, Madera Beach. I'd like to ask Ms. Rowan and Mr. Trask on record to confirm their advice to the city regarding amendment of the city's comprehensive plan and development regulations. Number one, I'd like to ask Mr. Trask and Ms. Rowan on the record, since they were responsible for this entire process. Mr. Trask drafted the ordinance. Ms. Rowan was in contact with the county and told the commissioners and the residents that the ordinance in front of the city today are required by the county, or else the county might sue the city, meaning that in order to be consistent, as Ms. Rowan puts it, the ordinance have to be identical. Is that true?
They're not going to answer your questions back. This is what I would like you to do. I would like you to finish what you have to say. I would like you to send an email to the city manager with your questions, and then he will then forward it to the appropriate department for an answer, and then we'll have the city manager CC the entire commission. Will that work for you?
Yeah, that will work for me.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. I can continue to read them now.
Okay.
Number two, Mr. Rowan, did anyone from the county tell you that the county would sue the city if it didn't make the ordinance consistent? And I'll ask that same question to Mr. Trask. Did anyone from the county tell you that the county would sue the city if it didn't make the ordinance consistent? This is a question for Mr. Trask. Your firm represents a number of municipalities in Pinellas County. Have you advised any other municipalities to amend the comprehensive plan and land development regulations in the same way as you advised the Madera Beach Commission? And then the questions are yes, or why not? You don't recall. That's possible answers. Actually, according to my lawyer, after he made a public records request, the county's public records report shows there is no record of the county ever suing any municipality for being inconsistent with its plan. There wasn't even a letter to any municipality warning any such action. Final question. In order to be absolutely clear, are there any changes to the proposed ordinance that increase density, even with a development agreement anywhere in the city? Are there any provisions in any of the ordinances that would permit the reduction or relaxation of any development requirements? And this is just a comment. If you can't answer these questions, then I don't think the city should adopt these ordinances until it can be explained in detail. Any increase in density, intensity, or any other development criteria to the public. So, I take your comment and your suggestion that we send these in to you, to the city manager in writing, and we will do that probably tomorrow.
Please do. The city manager will disseminate the questions to the appropriate people that can answer those questions, and then from there, that can all be sent to the commissioners.
Okay, that works for me. Yes, thank you very much.
No, thank you, sir. All right, next item up is, I think
we need to vote on that.
That's correct.
That was public comment.
I mean, I'd like some answers, but it was my understanding when we voted on this the first time that we were complying with the county plan so that in the future, anybody that wanted to build wouldn't have any problems with their future development, and that the increase in densification intensity there wasn't any in these parts of the comprehensive plan. Am I understanding that incorrectly?
So we have to be consistent with the county. The county gives us numbers like the density is, let's say, 40 units per acre. Currently, our plan goes up to 60 units per acre in certain areas, 45 units per acre. So currently, we are not consistent with the county. We can always adopt something that's less intense or dense than the county, but we cannot exceed that. So right now, we exceed that. So we're really bringing those numbers down to what they should be or should have been.
Are there any areas where it increases it? I mean, it seems to me like we're only decreasing it.
We are decreasing it by right, and then we are adopting that alternative temporary lodging use standards. It's where you have to have the development agreement process that we discussed. So if you look at the resort facilities medium, that's on page 72 of your packet. So you have by right, the temporary lodging is 50 units per acre. And then if you use that alternative temporary lodging use standards, it is proposed at 60. So you can compare that to what it is right now on page 75. And right now there's that sliding scale. If you go to page 75, so which is dependent on the land area. So let me. So the proposal for the RFM is to 60, whereas before it was that sliding scale, so it could potentially increase from 45 to 60, but it's also decreasing from 75 to 60. It's just really cleaning that up. And then in the residential office retail, so you can see on page 72 of the proposed density and intensity, it is temporary lodging 40 units per acre. That's just by right without going to any boards, any public meetings. And then that alternative temporary lodging use standards using that development agreement process is to 60 units per acre, where if you look at what it is currently, which is on the next page. Is, let's see, temporary lodging density of 45 units per acre. So it is increasing, but you do have to do that in development agreement standards.
Are there any increases by right?
No, only decreases by right. So back in 2008, those standards were adopted. They should have never been adopted in the way that they were. It should have detailed that development agreement process, and that's what the city was, what we understand that that's what they were trying to do is adopt those alternative temporary lodging use standards, but it just wasn't written in there, and it wasn't clear on how to use it and what you get by right, what you get with the development agreement. So this is really going back, cleaning that up.
This is the second reading. We've been going over this for 2 years. I think we just need to approve it and move on. And I really don't have any debate on anything you're doing. The buy rate is being brought down to the county standards. I don't see any negative to complying with the county regulations. So I know how I'm going to vote.
I feel like we have beat this. We've talked about it so much in workshops so that everyone understands the changes and complying with the county. The county asked several years ago for us to change this, and it just did not get addressed.
Yes.
And we've had changes. These changes are even stricter than what we originally started with. And I think that it's the second reading. We've discussed it, we've talked about it. It's a necessary change. I think that you can't talk about a development agreement that's not before us. That's not for conversation today. What's for conversation is becoming compliant.
Any other commissioner comments? Do we have a,
I'd like to make a motion
okay.
to pass ordinance 2023-22, future land use element, to be consistent with Forward Pinellas.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner McGinn,
Yes.
Commissioner Taglerini,
Yes.
Mayor Rostack.
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
All right, next up is ordinance 2023-26.
This is ordinance 2023-26, an ordinance of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, amending Division 4, R3 Medium Density Multifamily Residential of Article 5 Districts of Chapter 110 Zoning of the city's Land Development Code to amend the purpose and intent of the R3 district, add vacation rental, temporary lodging, and institutional as permitted uses, add retail, commercial, and personal service uses as an accessory use, revise the special exception uses for a standalone retail, commercial, and personal service uses, add retail, commercial to building site requirements and maximum density for residential dwelling, vacation rental units, and temporary lodging units in Section 110-230. Add setback requirements for temporary lodging and retail commercial. Amend maximum lot coverage provisions. Amend buffering requirements for temporary lodging. Add special requirements for temporary lodging. Alternate temporary lodging and use standards and standalone restaurants and retail commercial uses, providing for conflict, severability, and codification, and providing for an effective date. This is the second and final reading of ordinance 2023-26 by title only.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this? All right, public comment is closed. Commissioners?
Again, this is to bring us into compliance.
Yes,
with
this is
the
really
county.
just bringing just what you voted on into the land development regulations. So it's just bringing that from the comprehensive plan and putting it in the zoning.
Right, and honestly, the next handful of ordinances we're reading through are just broken into separate sections, doing the exact same thing for the different sections.
Exactly.
Other commissioners' questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-26.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Taglerini,
Yes.
Commissioner McGinn,
Yes.
Mayor Rostack.
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
Thank you. Ordinance 2023-27.
This is ordinance 2023-27, an ordinance of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, amending Division 5, C1 Tourist Commercial of Article 5 Districts of Chapter 110 Zoning of the city's Land Development Code to amend the purpose and intent of the C1 district. Revise permitted uses to include residential, vacation rental, personal service, office support, retail, commercial, business service, commercial, and temporary lodging. Delete commercial, recreation, and entertainment facilities as a special exception uses. Add institutional and commercial recreation as special exception uses. Add retail, commercial, and residential dwelling units to building site requirements and maximum density for vacation rental units and temporary lodging units in Section 110-260. Revise reference for permitted uses of side yards and setback requirements. amend maximum lot coverage provisions, add special requirements for alternative temporary lodging use standards and institutional uses other than public educational facilities, providing for conflict, severability, and codification, and providing for an effective date. That was the second final reading of ordinance 2023-27 by title only.
All right, thank you. Is there any public comment on this? All right, public comment is closed then. Commissioners?
Has this changed since the first reading?
No, there's been no changes.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve ordinance 2023-27.
I'll second.
City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Taglerini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kerr?
Yes.
Commissioner McGinn?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Mayor Rostick?
Yes,
The motion carried 5-0.
thank you. Next up is ordinance 2023-28.
Mayor Commissioners, this is ordinance 2023-28, an ordinance of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, amending Division 6, C2, Johns Pass Marine Commercial of Article 5 Districts of Chapter 110 Zoning of the city's Land Development Code to amend the purpose and intent of the C2 district, delete retail, and add commercial, commercial recreation, and retail commercial as permitted uses. Delete the C2 Johns Pass Marine Commercial District special requirements, providing for conflict, severability, and codification, and providing for an effective date. That was the second final reading of ordinance 2023-28 by title only.
All right, thank you, City Attorney. Is there any public comment on this? All right, public comment is closed. Commissioners?
Does this ordinance provide for any increases in by right densification?
No,
Has it changed any since we've voted on it?
no, it's the exact same.
Okay, do we have a motion then? Or
I'll
any
make a
oth-
motion to approve 2023-28.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner McGinn?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kerr?
Yes.
Commissioner Taglerini?
Yes.
Mayor Rostick?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
All right, next, ordinance 2023-29.
Mayor Commissioners, this is ordinance 2023-29, an ordinance of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, amending Division 7, C3 Retail Commercial of Article 5 Districts of Chapter 110 Zoning of the city's Land Development Code to amend the purpose and intent of the C3 district, delete business, office, financial service uses, and tourist dwelling units as permitted uses, add retail, commercial office support, business service, multifamily residential, vacation rental, and temporary lodging as permitted uses. Delete entertainment facilities, business and financial services, and medical marijuana dispensaries as special exception uses. Add institutional as religious use, retail, commercial, and business services as special exception uses. Delete tourist dwelling and multifamily units from building site requirements. Add vacation rental and temporary lodging units, multifamily and vacation rental unit lot size requirements, and revise lot width requirements for residential vacation rental units and temporary lodging units within building site requirements in section 110-320. Revise the density requirements for residential or vacation rental dwelling units, add reference to alternative temporary lodging use standards in CG or ROR future land use categories. Amend maximum lot coverage to allow for non-residential / commercial use only. Delete tourist dwellings and add temporary lodging to buffering requirements. Add requirements for vacation rentals and temporary lodging units and special requirements, providing for conflict, severability, and codification, and providing for an effective date. That's the second and final reading of ordinance 2023-29 by title only.
Thank you, City Attorney. Is there any public comment on this? Public comment is closed. Commissioners?
Does this ordinance allow for any increase in by right densification or impervious surface ratios or intensification of any kind?
No, it is actually decreasing the by right. It is increasing by the alternative temporary lodging use standards.
By how
like
much?
What we talked about before. So from, if you're in the CG, future land use category, That's where you had the sliding scale before. It's just straight 60 units per acre, where it did go up to 75 units per acre. And then in the ROR, future land use category, and if you're in this zoning district, instead of 45 units per acre for temporary lodging units, the by right is 40, but if you're using that development agreement process, that alternative temporary lodging use standards, it is increasing to 60 units per acre,
Not to 100.
not to 100.
Any other questions, commissioners? Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-29 C3 Retail Commercial Zoning District to be consistent with the countywide plan.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Taglerini.
Yes.
Commissioner McGinn,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Mayor Rostack.
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
All right, thank you. Next is ordinance 2023-30.
Mayor Commissioners, this is ordinance 2023-30, an ordinance of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, amending Division 8, C4 Marine Commercial of Article 5 Districts of Chapter 110 Zoning of the city's Land Development Code to amend the purpose and intent of the C4 district, delete restaurants, tourist dwelling units, and retail as permitted uses, add retail, commercial, temporary lodging units, commercial/business service use, and residential and vacation rental units as permitted uses, delete entertainment facilities and financial services, and add commercial, business service, and institutional as religious use, as special exception uses, delete tourist dwelling and add temporary lodging and vacation rental units to building site requirements and maximum density in section 110-350. Add reference to alternative temporary lodging use standards in CG and ROR future land use categories. Delete tourist dwelling units and add temporary lodging units and building setback requirements. Amend maximum lot coverage provisions to delete reference to temporary lodging uses. Amend buffering requirements for temporary lodging. Add special requirements for vacation rentals and temporary lodging units, providing for conflict, severability, and codification, and providing for an effective date. That was the second final reading of ordinance 2023-30 by title only.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there any public comment on this? All right, public comment is closed. Commissioners?
I have no questions. I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-30, C4 Marine Commercial Zoning District to be consistent with the countywide plan.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, thank you. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner Taglerini,
Yes.
Commissioner McGinn,
Yes.
Mayor Rostack.
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
All right, thank you. Next is ordinance 2023-33.
This is ordinance 2023-33, an ordinance of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, amending the capital improvements element of the comprehensive plan of the City of Madeira Beach to update the capital improvement program, CIP schedule, of capital improvements for fiscal years 2024 through 2030, providing for conflict, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is the first reading of this ordinance, 2023-33 by title only.
All right, thank you. Is there any public comment on this? Okay, public comment is closed. Commissioners?
If this is this is the first reading we've had?
It is the first
First
reading.
reading.
Do you need some presentation by staff? Maybe Jenny can update
Yeah,
you what this is
of
about?
course. This is just a little bit of housekeeping. We do this every year. So every fiscal year, the city is required by the Florida statutes as well as our comprehensive plan just to update its 5-year capital improvement program within the comprehensive plan. This just really reflects the budget. So these portions that you see, the amendments for in the comprehensive plan just updates that capital improvements programs. And it includes any facility improvements of $100,000 or more. And we do this every year. So it's just a little bit of housekeeping cleaning up.
Right, so when this is approved, it's not approving any specific
No, it's really,
item, it's just approving that it's,
it's in your budget and
this is
you
what we-
approved it
Right.
before. So it's really just taking those numbers from the budget that was approved in October and putting it in the comprehensive plan.
so.
As simple
it's
as
not-
that.
Right, it's not really appropriate to be going through single line items at this moment, it's just
No,
approving
no.
the overall comprehensive plan change.
Any other comments, commissioners?
Could I-
Do we have-
could I-
do
could I
we
make
have-
one other comment, Mayor? I just
Yes.
wanted to state that this is a lot more detailed than it has been in the past. Andrew has gone through, and he not only has provided a project title of each particular item, he has also added in the item name, so it gives it a little bit more detail, so the public will then have a little bit more information on each one of these items that may not have been there in the past. So he's added more information than what is normally in these types of plans.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you very much,
I found
job,
it to
Andrew.
be very thorough,
Yes.
much more than last year.
and it's appreciated.
Yes, very much appreciated.
All right, do we have a motion?
I move the approval of ordinance 2023-33.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, thank you. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Taglerini?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kerr?
Yes.
Commissioner McGeehan?
Yes.
Mayor Rostack?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
All right, thank you. Next is Forward Pinellas Alternative Compromise for Johns Pass Village Activity Center Plan.
So we have discussed the last few meetings, and I can bring up the presentation just so we can go through it really quickly. In just a minute. All right, so we'll be talking about the Johns Pass Village Activity Center Plan, and we've talked about this the last few workshops. The main reasons are to protect the village, we want to assure compatible redevelopment, we must be consistent with the countywide plan, as we were talking about previously, and we're really taking that proactive instead of reactive approach to planning. So like we discussed earlier, locally, we really look at 3 different plans. We have, at the county's level, we have the countywide plan, and then locally, we have the comprehensive plan, and then our land development regulations. Land development regulations, that's where you have your zoning, your setbacks, all of that. So here are the 3 maps and what they look like together. And so the previous ordinances was really correcting to make sure that we are in compliance with the countywide plan, so reducing those by right densities and intensities. And down in Johns Pass Village, as we know, it's quite different than what we have elsewhere on the island, so we're taking a different approach, and that approach is the land use change to activity center. So early this year, there was a vote for the activity center, and that went to the county. That was ordinance 2023-01 and 2023-02. For Pinellas, looked their board, they recommended the approval of an alternative compromise, and that's what you will be voting today. And then after here, if you vote for approval, this will still go to Forward Pinellas for the county's approval on the alternative compromise. They'll vote on that probably in January or February. We will let you know if this moves forward, and then it will also come back to the board after that for final approval and adoption of that ordinance 23-01 and 02. Since we've gone through this quite a bit, let me just skip ahead. So on the countywide plan map, what that would look like. Currently, we have multiple different uses here, land uses, and so that would turn that into an activity center. But as we know, all the land and properties in this area look very different. So locally, we would be adopting an activity center, but we would also have these different character districts, which then have their own intensities, densities, and then in the zoning, we will be writing in more of the setbacks, height, and also carrying that intensities and densities through. So the alternative compromise, Fort Pinellas agrees that it should be an activity center, but they're suggesting a less intense activity center. So these are the subcategories of activity center within the countywide plan. Previously, the city asked for a community center level, and with the alternative compromise, Fort Pinellas is suggesting the neighborhood center level.
Jenny, the neighborhood center was actually in the 2001 Dwaney plan, correct?
Yes, that's correct. We can go up really quick. I can show you. Oh, here it is.
Right,
Yeah,
but they cite that at,
They cite it as a neighborhood center.
Yes.
As well, yeah. And actually, the proposed neighborhood center in that Dwaney plan was a lot larger than what is proposed right now. The staff finds this appropriate, the neighborhood center level. We also have in your packets the list of other activity centers that you've seen before. That is on page 308 of your packet. Other neighborhood centers includes the Palm Harbor Activity Center, and so in St. Pete Beach, here, let me go to that page. See the 8th Avenue Commercial District, and then also Tarpon Springs, Mears Crossing. So there are other neighborhood centers, and that category fits within Johns Pass, and staff is supportive of that. So what we've done is we reduced the intensities and densities by right, and you can really see that in the special area plan that's also attached to this, of our reductions throughout the plan. And then also writing in the alternative temporary lodging use standards, similar to what has been adopted in the other zoning districts that we just went over. So you have to go through that development agreement process, and it's a lengthy process to get those higher standards. Oh, and here you can see on page 270 of your packet, the areas that exist, oh, these are the averages, and with the new standards, how that's changed. As well as the page before, you can see what was previously submitted to Fort Pinellas, and then the reductions.
We also added the impervious surface ratio
And
cap.
Oh,
yes, thank
microphone.
you. The impervious surface ratio cap is also included in this. So there was one minor change to include that impervious surface ratio to 0.85. And then throughout the zoning, we can decrease that as well, because there may be some other areas, like in more residential areas, that it's more appropriate to have, say, like a 0.7, 0.75, 0.8 ISR. So this is the very cap. You can't exceed that.
Thanks, Jenny. As you know, I've met with you and we've discussed this in detail, and I appreciate the way you outlined some of the things we talked about. I just want to point out that even though it says 1 to 3 acres, they have the potential to have 100 if I look on the average lot sizes in each characteristic district, I don't see any acre averages in our properties. Is that correct?
Yes, let me go to that slide just so we're looking at the same thing. Oh, it went too far.
Page 21, I think. Oh, that's for the lot sizes. That's what I was saying.
Hold on just a
Yeah,
second.
sorry.
I know I have a slide in here. I know it was a lot of pages, so. Okay, so we have the average lot size, and then I think we were talking about this slide, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So we have the average lot size of each character district. Let me make this a little larger, so it's a little easier for everyone to see. It might be too large. So we have the average lot size of each character district, the temporary lodging units per acre, and where you see those larger numbers, say here, the asterisk, that is with alternative temporary lodging use standards. It's where you have to have the development agreement that goes to Planning Commission, that comes to BOC, that's voted on. But this sliding scale right here, that's based on the land area. So what we did is we took the highest number and multiplied it by the average lot size. So obviously we understand that you have to have over an acre for that 100, I believe, and so that 0.18 isn't an acre, but that kind of gives you an idea of, you know, your average lot sizes, on average what you could get, just something to kind of grasp. Sometimes it's hard to see that density, that units per acre, and then you think most of the lots on Madeira Beach are not an acre. Well, what are they? What does that really look like? So that kind of
Thank you, and I appreciate that clarification. So a new issue has come up to mind since we last talked. I go through Treasure Island on my way to downtown quite a bit, and I don't know if any of you go that way. They've demolished a whole strip of businesses, and one of the businesses was a gym where I worked out, and I knew the owner, and I know he rented, and so it came to mind, I wonder, I couldn't reach him to ask him personally because I guess he's disconnected his phone. Was he given an option on that, or did the owner of that property just tell him you're done after your lease and now we're going to rebuild something? So the question came to mind, what is there to prevent property owners? Because I understand many of those businesses on John's Pass are renting their space. So what if a property owner just wanted to demolish it and build something completely new? I'm trying to just look at, is there anything to prevent that from happening? Or is there anything that says this can only be applied in case of a catastrophic event?
This isn't a catastrophic event, so you could redevelop, you could, say if there's a vacant lot, you could develop at these standards if they're approved here and, you know, the final adoption.
Well, what about the Bronze Lady business? I mean, I don't think she owns that, or maybe she does. But I'm just using that as an example. What if the owner of that property wanted to, after her lease was up, kick her out and demolish it and build something different?
Mm-hmm. I don't think there's anything, Tom.
I don't think that's a city function.
Yeah. Do you have any input?
Right, the connection between the tenant and the landlord, we have no role in that. That has nothing would be prevented by way of adoption here that would address that. So I don't know how we can protect a tenant if that's what your concern is. Or is your bigger concern a landlord, you know, having tenants leave and then have a bigger parcel, a big wide parcel, maybe 5 or 6 lots together? Can they build lots together to make a bigger project that would allow more units per acre?
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
So that may be a question you want to answer then.
Yeah, so they could unify potentially, say if you kick everybody out and a property owner owns multiple parcels, they could unify and tie the lots together.
But they don't have to wait for a hurricane to knock it down.
No.
And these restrictions or this activity plan would apply to whatever they built next.
Yes.
So
Yes,
it would actually, in some cases, reduce the ISR, because in some cases,
Absolutely.
there's no
Yeah, some places
impervious
down
surface
there.
ratio, right?
Yes.
And it would,
And you want to have those landscape requirements.
right, of
and
course,
we-
and it would reduce
Yeah.
the densification because there is a little bit more space required in this plan than what some of them actually have.
Without a PD. By right, is what
Well,
you're
they
saying.
still, so say if you went with the PD, you would still have to meet that .85 ISR. You can't exceed that, how it's written right now, and if this goes forward and is adopted.
I just wanted to make sure that the board understood, this is not just setting preventing protecting the businesses. It could happen, they could do it anytime after we do this. It doesn't have to be knocked over by a hurricane. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to persuade you one way or the other. That was interesting to me to realize that. I assumed that they could only build back after a hurricane, but that's not the case.
But I think that's what I assumed. That's how it was explained to us previously, that this was done to protect John's Pass in case of a catastrophic event. So that's not the case then.
That's only one of several reasons.
Okay.
It's also
There were multiple
assuring-
reasons.
Yeah, also assuring that we have, that you have compatible redevelopment, that you have development that matches the character, what's currently down there.
Yeah, I mean, one of the goals would definitely be anything new to come in would have ground floor.
Andrew,
retail.
please speak into.
One of the goals would be to have, like, anything new that comes in would have like ground floor retail that's flood-proof because it's in a flood zone, but to continue to have those commercial businesses that residents and visitors like a lot. So that's what I mean, like even if there is some redevelopment, whether on vacant lot or a building, that it would look like the buildings around it.
We keep that Main Street character that everyone knows and most loves. So it's really retaining that character and making sure that any new development also keeps that.
I guess we have to ask ourselves, are we okay with that? Is that,
Yeah.
are we okay with, once we pass this and an owner of, property owner sees, oh, now I can do this, I don't know if it'd be to their advantage or not, but they don't have to wait for a hurricane to knock it over, is what I'm saying. Are we okay with that?
So the bottom line is that business owners are not protected, say, after the lease is up, I mean, the renter of the property.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's anything that we could
Yeah, they're not
write.
protected right
Oh,
now.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They're not
The bottom
protected
line is they're not
currently.
Protection for them for any, it's not for us to regulate that relationship.
True, okay.
I don't know, do we want to consider putting a wording that says rebuilding only in the event of a catastrophic disaster?
No. No, I mean, if you own property, it's your property. You can do whatever you want to do with it within zoning regulations. If you decide, if it's a good business plan to rent out that property, to lease that property, but then an opportunity comes up and their leases are expiring and you want to do something else, it's your property. You can do whatever you want with it. I mean, property rights,
I mean, it was a realization to me.
Yeah.
I just wanted the board to
Yeah.
discuss this.
sure. No, I'm glad you did.
Just because I assumed wrongly
Yeah.
that a hurricane had to wipe it out before somebody could rebuild it.
No, not at all.
Or a fire, or something like that.
I would remind you also that you're not voting on the ordinance tonight. That's going to come back to you. This is the discussion relative to the alternative compromise. And so if you approve it, then it'll go to Forward Pinellas for the next step. If you don't approve it, it'll go to Forward Pinellas, it will be denied. And when the ordinance comes back to you, that's going to be an issue. So this is not, you're not voting on the actual ordinance. You're just voting on whether the alternate compromise that's being promoted by Forward Pinellas is acceptable to you, moving it from community center to neighborhood center.
So Tom, we could actually have this discussion again once it was
Well,
approved.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I would expect you to have this discussion when it comes back to you.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it, thanks.
Yeah.
That makes a difference to me.
So, I mean, to me, what we're voting on today is, this has gone back and forth, back and forth. We've talked about it a lot of times in trying to understand what it all means. And what's before us today is what Forward Pinellas sent back and said, we had presented, and they said, no, we're not going to approve that. You need to reduce down to this, and we'll approve this. Potentially. Potentially. They could change their mind again, and if we approve it today, it'll go back to them. They will have their meeting and discussion, and then it'll come back to us to talk more. I wonder, though, if what you're talking about is, if somebody owns a portion of Johns Pass, could they tear it down and build something different in Johns Pass? I think that, my question very briefly would be, would that not have to come back before us as a plan development? And I know there's lots of talk in the community on different things being built, different places, but I can't imagine anybody wanting to vote to change Johns Pass to look any different than it does. This commission or any other, it is what draws people to our little city, and tourism is what feeds us.
So say if you tore something in Johns Pass Village down on Village Boulevard, this is what you could build back. This is given the setbacks and the floor area ratio. You can't even get to those setbacks because the floor area ratio is very small. So if you tore down a building, you could not
But that's
build
currently,
something.
that's currently.
That's currently,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's really protecting the property owners, protecting the feel and the character of Johns Pass.
Thank you. I understand, thanks.
So it's, what we're voting on here is to be able to accept the compromise, to go to neighborhood center versus activity center. Are we okay with that?
So it's, the activity centers in the countywide plan has multiple subcategories, so it's reducing that subcategory from community center down to neighborhood center.
Right, so it's
There it is.
less intense, less
Yes.
dense.
Yes.
And I think, but it fits for what we want. So it's a win-win. So I don't see any reason that we would oppose it.
I don't have any more comments or questions.
We got ahead of ourselves. Is there any public comment on this?
Oh, we did?
I didn't ask earlier.
You know, I've thought about a lot of Bill Gay for 2350th Avenue. I've thought a lot about development issues here. And the thing that just came to mind as you're discussing this, that it seems like this will open up to higher densities down there. There's a possibility, especially if you be able to consolidate a large block of property. But the other thing I noticed here, and I raised that in regard to the Cambria, that this commission and prior commissions have not been very good at following the ordinance that are currently in place. The fact that the Cambria could reduce its setback substantially or reduce the green space substantially, and those things were never, pushed through the planning commission or through the planning group, and they violate certain ordinances here, says that, if you open things up in this for greater density with this new plan, there's no guarantee that any of that stuff would hold true. For example, I gave you the example earlier of the tiki hut over here. An accessory structure can only be 8 by 12 by 8, and it has to be 10 foot separated from the primary structure. That's what's in the code. That's what should be done. But, you know, when I raise that issue with you, I get blank stares over here and saying, gee, Moe, the tiki looks pretty good. At least you should build that thing, even though it violates what's going on with the ordinances here. So, you know, my point of view is that the city has to follow its ordinances. And in a lot of cases, and that's why you have lawsuits here, the city's not following its ordinances. Helen Price makes the comment that, well, you know, the reason why we had to, you know, reduce the setbacks here at the Cambria is because Bill Gay made us shorten up this building. He took some floors off it. That was a voluntary agreement that we had with the developers. You know, we met with them in a negotiated settlement, and we said these are the kinds of things we would want. And they said these are the kinds of things that they wanted. They agreed to reducing the height of those buildings. They weren't forced into doing that. So, you know, what I'm saying is if the commission here has no backbone, and they don't approve these projects when there are changes in accord with the ordinances I cited, there's no protection here for the citizens. No protection whatsoever. The fact that you're putting this tiki over here and it's never gone through the development approval process, which Rowan manages. It's in the ordinances, the 2018 ordinance. There are certain steps you have to go through. You know, that's blatant disregard for the ordinances here. And Trash should have been warning you guys about it. The other thing I complain about is that there's been absolutely no training for the Planning Commission, no training for the planning group, and what these ordinances mean in terms of PD. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments closed on this item.
I would just like to state, Mr. Gay has some very pointed comments. This is not a debate situation here. He's going to get those answered, but we do not have rebuttal from any zoning or any staff. So take the comments for what they are, whether they're true or not. That's the part of the litigation. I guess it's being referenced as being litigation, but it really doesn't have much to do with what we're voting on here now. And without responses, we don't know what we're.
Yep. Mayor, Commissioner, to interrupt, please just stay on the topic on the item at hand. The resident brought up something that's not relevant to this topic. Plus, just to add to it, it's its own zoning, so we can discuss that at a workshop. It's opinions by numerous residents, but please stay on the item. Thank you.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the 4 Pinellas. Oh, are we making a motion on this?
Is there any other commissioner comments? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the 4 Pinellas alternative compromise for the Johns Pass Village Activity Center plan.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Kerr?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Taglerini?
Yes.
Commissioner McGeehan?
Yes.
Mayor Rostack?
No.
The motion carried 4-1.
Okay, letter M was pulled from the agenda, so we'll move past that. We spoke about that earlier. So now we're up to unfinished business. Do we have any?
No.
All right. Next up is contracts and agreements. State issued grant for the cancer reducing exhaust capture system. I'm assuming this is the fire chief?
Yes. Mayor and Council, the fire chief comes up. He'll discuss a grant that we have, I think we've applied for or we've received. Chief,
this is Mayor, Vice Mayor Commission. This is the second, or it was on the workshop. It's the same cancer decontamination grant, and it's just coming to y'all for a vote now. If you like, I can speak on it again.
Oh, no. We're acutely aware.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is there any public comment on this All right, public comments closed. Commissioners? And it's an exhaust capture system, so the carcinogenic agents from the exhaust system won't go into the fire station is basically what this is, and it's for 2 of their trucks. And it's partially grant funded, correct, Chief? 75%.
So would that, and there's 2 of them, right? $21,604 is what's left over after the grant or before the grant?
He said there's 21K and
Yes.
some change left over for us. Is that the city's encumbrance after the grant?
No,
The total.
yeah, that's the total that the State Fire Marshal's office is awarding us. And then we make up the difference, which is roughly 4,000.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes, it is.
Perfect.
I mean, I remember us talking about this, and it's definitely a needed for the fire department, so
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve applying for the grant or accepting the grant.
I'll second that.
All right. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner McGeehan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kerr?
Yes.
Commissioner Taglerini?
Yes?
Mayor Rostack?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
All right. I see somebody heading up here. Park Street Antique Center lease for Public Works.
Good afternoon. I
Good
almost said
afternoon.
good evening, but it's early today. So what I have before you today is what we spoke about at the last workshop, is the 1-year extension to the lease. At your request, I did request that they changed what the use was of the building, so you'll see that in your packet with an initial from the landlord. So I'm here if you have any questions.
No. Is there any citizen comment on this? All right, no citizen comment. Commissioners?
Was the wording changed as you?
It was. It
Yeah.
was. That they can work on the equipment inside, and it was initialed by the owner.
Thank you.
Just trying to cover the bases. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Park Street Antique Center lease for Public Works.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Well, thank you. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Kerr?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner McGeehan?
Yes.
Commissioner Taglerini?
Yes?
Mayor Rostack?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
All right, next up is Madeira Beach Youth Baseball and Softball Contract. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Just bringing this back for final approval. Be a contract with the City of Madeira Beach and the Madeira Beach Youth Baseball and Softball boosters for continued use to the facilities outside, just to make sure that we shore up everything and get them locked in for the future. So,
Are there any changes?
no,
Okay.
not that I had.
Is there any public comment on this? All right, public comment closed. Commissioners?
Great job.
Absolutely. Well, I need a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the youth baseball and softball contract.
Well, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Taglerini?
Yes?
Commissioner McGeehan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kerr?
Yes.
Mayor Rostack?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
Okay. Next up is RFP 2023-08.
Hello again.
Hi.
So what I have before you today is a contract with the electrician. We went out to bid as a cleanup. Their contract had ended from the 2018 RFP that we went out for. So we put this out to bid, and we received one submittal. So this is our original 2018. He's staying with his original contract numbers. So everybody's really happy with this electrician. He is right up the street, and I think they've been here on every single property today, just working on items that we have on a checklist. So here if you have any questions.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this first? All right, public comment closed. Commissioners? Do we have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the RFP 2023-08.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kerr?
Yes.
Commissioner McGeehan?
Yes.
Commissioner Taglerini?
Yes.
Mayor Rostick?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
All right, thank you. Item 12, new business, Resolution 2023-13, the FY 2024 Budget Amendment Number 1.
Mayor, Commissioners, this is Resolution 2023-13, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, amending the budget for fiscal year 2024, October 1, 2023 through September 30th, 2024, by increasing appropriations for expenditures in the General Fund, the Local Option Sales Tax Fund, the Archibald Park Fund, and the Parking Fund, and providing for an effective date. That was a reading of Resolution 2023-13 by title only, and I think Mr. Laughlin is going to present this one.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So we also discussed this in our workshop. These are items that we appropriated during the FY 2023 budget process, and then also the city is encumbered through our purchase requisitioning and creation of a purchase order. So we have remaining unspent balances on certain purchase orders that we'd like to roll into the FY 2024 budget. And since those were unspent in 23, we've got carryover reserves that we can use to apply to FY 2024. Items not budgeted when we went through the initial budgeting process in 2024, because we initially anticipated that we would exhaust those purchase orders and complete those projects. But as you know, things happen, delays, and we have spillover of certain projects, goods, services that we want to acquire. And so this is a typical budget amendment that occurs after the adoption of the FY 2024 budget. And that's what all these items are, as well as an increase in the salaries and benefits of the fire department based on previous workshop item and agreement that you all already approved. And so that's essentially the purpose of this budget amendment number 1 for FY 2024. Take any questions if you have anything on any particular items.
Okay, thank you. Is there any public comment on this first? All right, public comment is closed. Commissioners. Okay, do we have a motion then?
I move that we approve Resolution 2023-13.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a second. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Taglerini?
Yes.
Commissioner McGeehan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kerr?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Mayor Rostick?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
All right, thank you. Next up is Resolution 2023-14, Cybersecurity Resolution.
Mayor, Commissioners, this is Resolution 2023-14, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, adopting the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework, authorizing the city manager or designee to adopt policies and procedures as necessary to implement the framework and to comply with Section 282.3185 Florida statutes, authorizing the city manager designee to affirm compliance with Section 282.3185 Florida statutes and providing for an effective date. Some background on this is that in 2022, the Florida legislature adopted a provision in the Florida statutes, and I'm just going to read the sentence that applies to it right now. It says that each local government shall adopt cybersecurity standards that safeguard its data, information technology, and information technology resources to ensure availability, confidentiality, and integrity. The cybersecurity standards must be consistent with generally accepted practices for cybersecurity, including the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework. The law requires all cities that have a population greater than 25,000 to complete this requirement by January 1st, 2024. Since we're under a population of 25,000, we have until January 1st, 2025 to make this adoption. We're getting a head start on it. We're getting a jump by a year. This resolution specifically provides that the Board of Commissioners is adopting the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework that's referenced in the statute. Once this resolution is adopted, the city manager or his designee will go online and fill out this very short form saying that the city is in compliance, and then we'll be in compliance with this state mandated requirement.
All right, thank you. Is there any public comment on this? All right, public comment is closed. Commissioners.
Is there any new software, hardware, services that are required to be able to maintain these standards, or we're already maintaining these standards? It's just filling out the forms?
No, yeah, no, there's no new software. We're able to comply, and we'll make sure that all of the standards are met with the IT vendor that we use.
No other questions?
Commissioners? All right, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2023-14, Cybersecurity Resolution.
All right, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Taglerini,
Yes.
Commissioner McGeehan,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Mayor Rostick.
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
All right, thank you. Next up is authorized settlement of special magistrate liens on 13222 3rd Street East. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So before you today is a request to settle the code enforcement liens that are on this property located at 13222 3rd Street East. You remember that this was a property where there was basically an abandoned home and overgrown vegetation on the property. The property was brought into compliance in, I believe it was 2020, and the fine stopped running at that time. It came into compliance by way of a demolition of the property, and it was the lot was leveled. There are 3 code enforcement liens on the property. There was one from 2001, which under state law is no longer enforceable. They're only enforceable for 20 years. But as part of this settlement, we would be releasing that lien for title clearing purposes. There are 2 other liens on the property, one from 2017 that was running at $250 a day. And there was also a lien in 2018 that was running at $100 a day until the property came into compliance. The total amount of the code enforcement fine is $127,554.65. That does not include the attorney's fees, interest, or costs, which would also be awarded if the city was successful in prosecuting this case. In 2020, the city hired an attorney by the name of Matt Wiedner to foreclose the liens. He has been litigating this case since it was originally filed. Recently, the city has received an offer of settlement from the property owner. The offer of settlement is for the property to be sold, the city to receive 25% of the value received at that sale, where the property owner would retain 75%. Obviously, we don't know what the property is going to sell for, but I did provide some information in the memo to you. According to the Pinellas County Property Appraiser's Office, the just market value of this property as a vacant lot is $277,497. The property appraiser also has a sales comparison value at $322,300. Using the lower value and assuming that there are closing costs in the range of about 10%, the sale would yield about $250,000. Of that, the city's share would be 25% of roughly $62,000. Again, I don't know what it will sell for. It may sell for more, it may sell for less, but this would settle this case and get this property hopefully to a point where a new home is built there and it could be something other than a vacant lot. Attached in the packet is the settlement agreement that was negotiated by Attorney Wiedner and the property owner's attorney. And the purpose of today's discussion is to get your authorization to have the city manager sign that settlement agreement and settle this foreclosure case. I'd be happy to answer any other questions if you have them, but I'm recommending approval.
Okay. Is there any citizen comment first? Okay. Public comments closed. Commissioners.
How are the city's attorney's fees handled in this?
It's my understanding that Mr. Wiedner gets a percentage of the total recovery that he gets, and that was negotiated before I was the city attorney, and it basically is one of those situations, if he prevails, it's like a contingent fee, he gets paid. If he loses, he doesn't get to collect anything. And so that was negotiated. I believe it's 40% of whatever is recovered by the city that was negotiated when his contract was entered into a number of years ago. So,
And as part of the agreement, the settlement agreement, of course, it would be an arm's length sale would be a requirement.
yeah, we made that very, very clear because I was very concerned, and so was Mr. Wiedner, that, you know, the property owner would sell it to his brother at some very low price, and we'd only get that little piece of it, but that's not going to happen. The settlement agreement addresses that. It will be an arm's length transaction. You know, otherwise, we won't be releasing the liens. So we're going to make sure that it gets significant value.
Very good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion then from the commission?
I would make a motion to accept and authorize the settlement of special magistrate liens on 13222 3rd Street East.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner Taglerini,
Yes.
Commissioner McGeehan,
Yes.
Mayor Rostick.
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is staff reports. City Clerk report, December 2023.
Yes, I had recently learned, we're separating the city clerk's report from the city manager's. It was all included, and so this is my first one, and so I'll keep the Board of Commissioners up to date each month. And I want to add a little bit of the city history, a little bit of the document so you can slowly read about Madeira Beach. And if there's anything else that you all would like added, I'm happy to add that. So I hope you took the time to read the little bit of history that I put on there. It was very interesting. It was prior to August 1951. Of course, it wasn't the city of Madeira Beach. It was two towns. The town of Madeira Beach extended from the middle of the 155th Avenue to 140th Avenue. The town of South Madeira Beach extended from 140th Avenue to Johns Pass. And then on June 6, 1951, the charter for the city of Madeira Beach was approved by the state of Florida. The original charter is in the office of the city clerk. On the August 7, 1951, the voters of the two towns had an election to vote for or against the merger of the two towns into one city, which it was approved. On August 8, 1951, the votes were canvassed, and on August 9, 1951, the results of the election determined that the two towns were now the city of Madeira Beach, as set forth in the charter. Mentioned in item 2, the form of government was mayor commissioners at that time, and there were 10 employees on the payroll, consisting of the city clerk, city attorney, 3 in the police department, 3 in the fire department, the librarian, and the city judge. There was no public works. They didn't have any administrative departments at that time. They just had what we call now charter officers. Of course, we contracted out the police department, and we don't hold court here anymore like they did in the old days, so we don't need a judge. So it was very interesting information, and so each month I'll add a little more each time. Happy to do that. I love history.
Well, thank you.
I'm always reading.
All right.
I'm always taking classes.
Good job on your first report. All right. Discussion items for the December 13th BOC regular meeting. Campaign signs, a presentation by our city manager.
Yeah, these are actually the items that we were going to schedule the workshop after this meeting, but because there were only 3 items, we added them to this meeting. So that's why they're at the end of this meeting, just for discussion purposes. As we begin, we are toward the end of the current qualifying period for the city commission seats that are up for election, and that runs through this Friday at noontime. Any and all folks who have inquired with the clerk about possibly qualifying have received an abundance of information, including the information that is in the packet regarding signage. We typically do receive concerns, and has been happening for decades. This is nothing new. And most cities have similar ordinances, and we all have to comply with the Florida statutes regarding elections and the signage that are out there. We have discussed this issue before regarding whether we could possibly make some sort of additional option for those who are campaigning, but we never finalized whether we could. We are still bound by Florida statutes in terms of what is an allowable campaign sign and et cetera. So if there are any concerns, and we did receive some last year, and by the way, every city I've worked in, there have always been concerns and people expressing that, hey, these signs should not be where they are, et cetera. Most cities do not allow any signage on any public right-of-way. The rights-of-way are designed, there are a few exceptions, but certainly campaign signs cannot go on a public right-of-way. That they can notify us, they can notify the Florida Elections Commission. When we receive them, we do go and we will send one of our code enforcement personnel, in this case actually our Pinellas County Sheriffs. That did happen with last year's March election, and the deputies did go out and et cetera. And whether they spoke with an individual, they either spoke with them, advised them what they could do, advised them they needed to remove. To my knowledge and in inquiring, no citations were issued. There was none of that occurred. We had one incident with an individual, which I think is still has not been resolved. But not for us. That's between the individual, I think, and the court. So how we proceed is exactly just that way, that if there's a concern about a campaign sign, then it goes to our code enforcement, to our deputies to review, and in many instances, they may either remove the sign if it's in the right-of-way, but we do advise whose ever sign it may belong to, hey, you cannot have your signs on the right-of-way. That's pretty much it for the campaign. There's a lot of other actual listing in our code and in state statute as to how many, exactly where they can go, who you obtain permission from doing that, all of that data. I think all of you are versed in that, and by virtue of having been involved in the election process, even if there may not have been an opponent for some of you, but certainly just knowing how elections work. And again, we don't allow any signs on any public right-of-way unless we give permission, for example, for a special event, or if it's one of our signs that we are putting out on the right-of-way. And if the city places a sign on a right-of-way, typically it's to notify the public. It is not for one specific individual or item. We have everything from a variable message board to yard signs to larger just informational to the public normally about an event, an activity, or a meeting that is happening. We do have a sign code that regulates all other types of signs, whether you can put a monument sign, where you can put a pole sign, et cetera, where you can put a yard sign, if it's a garage sale, if it's an open house for a property that's been on sale. That is about the second most concern that we receive is, hey, there's 30 signs down at 100, et cetera, Avenue on Gulf Boulevard, and they're all over the right-of-way about an open house. And typically, we can go and remove all of those signs, but typically they are removed normally by the end of the open house, particularly on one of our main roads, whether Gulf Boulevard, 150th, or even 140th, kind of some of our most traveled roadways. So we try to be reasonable about it, but again, it's trying to inform, advocate, educate, particularly candidates for office. It is difficult to share the information once we get closer to an election, obviously with all the other candidates for other offices from the county, the state, and the federal level, but pretty much the rules are very similar. you cannot place your campaign signs on any public right-of-way. And if they do go on any private, then you must obtain permission.
Question, how can you tell what is a public right-of-way and where the property line?
Typically, and that's the difficult part. Here's really the guideline for that. If you're within probably a few feet of any street or sidewalk, you're going to be in the right-of-way, no matter where you are. You can exactly, where does it begin and where does it end? Many roads and streets are going to be different. You start at the center line of each road, street, alley, et cetera, and extend X number of feet in each direction, depending on what that right-of-way is. So parts of Gulf Boulevard, the right-of-way, I think, goes as many as 70 feet. Most of our streets are between 20 to 50 feet. It just depends on the street.
So there's no easy answer.
There is not an easy answer, but the simplest is if you're within a few feet of the street, you're likely going to be on the right-of-way. Look at utility poles, fire hydrants, other utility markers. Those are typically on the right-of-way. But utility markers, meaning a utility pole. Can you put your sign right next to the utility pole? Likely that's in the right-of-way. No.
And then how about the sidewalks on the inside of the sidewalk closer to the property
That would be the
line?
right-of-way.
That's still
Because
the
typically a sidewalk typically is on what is considered the public right-of-way, whether you're on 150th Gulf Boulevard, 140th, where the majority of our sidewalks are located, or just some of the side streets that have a little bit of a sidewalk, it's typically going to be on the right-of-way. But we don't have very many sidewalks within neighborhoods. And again, the majority of our signs are placed on Gulf Boulevard, 150th and 140th. But they are spread throughout, and you'll see them, I mean, in numerous streets as well.
How does that apply to residential neighborhoods?
Well, again, it's the same. There's no difference. You still cannot put it on the right-of-way.
Typically, I know where we are, I think it's 15-foot
I think
right-of-way.
It's about 20 feet.
Yeah, so that means you have to set it back 21 feet from the street?
No, essentially 10, if it's a 20 feet of right-of-way, you have, from the center of the street, you have 10 feet in each direction.
Including the street? No.
Yes, from the middle of the street, you just go 10 feet in each direction.
Okay.
Public comment, please come up and stay on topic if you would, sir.
Bill Gay, 423 150th Avenue. There is state legislation that regulates the right-of-way on state highways, which would be 150th Avenue and on Gulf Boulevard. The right-of-way on 150th Avenue is 100 feet from the center of the highway on the north side. It's 94 feet on the south side. All of the signs on 150th Avenue from the bridge to Gulf Boulevard were illegal signs. They all violated the state code. There's a city ordinance that defines campaign signs also. They're supposed to be 10 feet back from the roadways on the straightaway on streets. And it's supposed to be 15 feet back at the intersections. I would venture that 90+% of the signs that were posted in the last election, and probably the last elections over the last 15 or 20 years, have been illegal signs. And the city has not done a good job of cleaning that up. The responsibility for enforcing those laws lie with the code enforcement officer and also or a designee of the city manager, and they have not been enforced at all. There was an incident where Andrews was campaigning on the right-of-way, not the right.
Can we stay on topic with what we're going to do to fix things now?
What I will do is I will send you the legislation. Mr. Gomez was very confused about what he was saying. I will send you the legislation to look at, and then it's your responsibility or his responsibility to get the job done with code enforcement, whether that's the sheriffs or through Frank DeSantis.
No, please send that to us. I'd appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and our enforcement is through our deputies, as I've stated, through our code enforcement, because we'd want to avoid incidents. There was an incident last year, so we want to avoid that going forward. And again, we will enforce something that's been on the books for decades and has been happening for decades, but we will do that. It's just part of democracy in this country and elections, so if we could change it, we'll change it, but this is what the codes are now. And we do ask the public to please not remove any. That is not a good idea to do that. Just contact the city, and we will send our code enforcement, our deputies out to review and take care of the signs.
Is there any other commissioner comments? Okay. So these are just discussion items.
Just a discussion
Yep.
item, right?
You have anything else for us on that, city manager?
thank you.
Okay. No, thank you. Very in-depth. Okay, next is field internship agreement with the SPC, Emergency Medical Services Program Chief.
All right, good afternoon again. This agreement is between us and St. Pete College. It essentially allows the two of our new hires, they're going to be attending paramedic school in January. And this allows our firefighters to be their preceptor. So that way when they're here, they get credit for starting the IVs or administering medications, whatever it may be. And that's essentially what this is. And it gives me the ability to have access to their grades as well throughout the program.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is there any public comment on this? All right, public comments closed, commissioners.
Do they have to attain a C or better as usual, right? During their SPC classes, right?
Well, I would only want the A-team taking care of me. I think we'd all be in agreement with that.
Yeah, they do have to obtain a passing score, and they're allowed two failures, and it's a year-long program, so they have to stay in the books. Yeah.
And in the end, this is a National Registry paramedic certification also.
Absolutely. Yep. You get your state of Florida paramedic license, but you're also nationally registered.
You get the glitter patch.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Some new comments on that? All right. Next is RFP 2023-09, Patriot Park Dock Replacement.
And Mayor and Commissioner, as Ms. Wepper walks up, just wanted to advise, as we've received some calls and residents and other visitors, for this specific project, we had to close the access, and I think it's still closed.
That is correct.
To the actual, I guess we're calling it a dock.
One of the fishing piers is closed.
Pier.
It's unsafe.
Correct. Yes. So we've been working on kind of trying to figure out what to do with these piers for a long time. As I stated in my memo, when the city acquired back then it was called Causeway Park, which has now been renamed to Patriot Park. It was designed in 2003, and the docks were also included on that. But then when they originally built those docks, they did not wrap the pilings. As we all know, in Pinellas County, we have the worms. So I had those docks inspected in 2022 to see if we needed to do a full replacement or if we could just do a decking replacement. That inspection came back and said full replacement, those pilings were not good. Since that time, we then went into design, and then we went out for bid. During the bid process, one of the docks, which is the easternmost dock, is in just disrepair, and it's not worth it to put the money into repairing it if we're going to do a full replacement. So we have chosen to close it. There is one that is still open, but we're pretty close to, that one being a little bit unsafe as well without needing some repairs. So I did originally have $125,000 in the budget, and as you see, it did come in a bit over. How we kind of priced this was the east and the west dock for a total, and then the city, we were going to purchase the hand railing. So disregard the pricing for the hand rail in here because I just got a way better pricing that just came in today. So rather than, I think it was $47,000, I got it down to almost $19,000. So The original bid, we received 2 bids, one from Fender Marine and one from Spieler Companies. Fender Marine is from Orlando, and they came in at $370,000. That was just their bid pricing for the east and the west dock. That did not include the possibility of having to drill pilings. So what we know from drilling in our canals and the amount of riprap that's over there is we're not sure we'll be able to get the depth. And I didn't include that in the original bid, just didn't think about it. So that was an addition, a possible addition. We don't know until we get into the construction. So Spieler came in at $119,715 for the east and the west dock, with a possible cost per piling to drill at $750. There are 49 pilings total per the docks. So if we have to drill every single piling, it's going to be an additional $36,750. But that's an if, we don't know. We're not.
So you're under 200K.
No. My total cost, if we have to drill with the new handrail pricing coming in, is $175,000. $392, yeah. A little over $175,000. So yes, I am over budget of what we originally had budgeted, but we've changed a few things. We've changed it to composite decking versus wood decking. So we're expanding the longevity of these docks. We do have money set aside for park maintenance. So there is money that can be allocated towards this that will not take us over budget in that account.
How big are each of the docks, square footage wise, do you know?
I have the plans right here in front of me. I don't have it directly, but I can give you, and I didn't bring my phone up here to calculate.
I mean, are they like 8 by 20, 8 by 40?
25 by 40 on the smaller one, which is the west dock, and then the east dock is 80 by 30-ish. So they're quite large.
Are they used very often?
They're used all the time.
Really?
Yeah, all the time. Every time I go over to that park, there's quite a few people. And although I think we may have 5 or 6 parking spaces over there, a lot of people ride their bikes. And then there are a lot of people that come from like the nursing homes that do come there on a bus and then do go out there on those docks. Maybe not so much for fishing, but they do go out there just to kind of sit, or they sit under the pavilion or right there on the seawall.
There are people at that park?
All the time.
All the time?
Yeah.
Wow.
And there are fisher people all the time?
All the time. I was just there yesterday with a roofer looking at the memorial, and there was probably 3 or 4 people over there. So they are definitely a quality of life, good thing for the community, and definitely need to be redone as soon as possible.
Well, it sounds like you've done your homework. There's nothing you can do about the pricing.
No, and I'm going to work with a contractor because there may be a few things that we might be able to bring the cost down a little bit more on. And as I said, I've already gotten the hand railing down, so I'm going to work to get that budget number down.
Is there any public comment on this first before we continue with the commissioners? Okay, no public comment, commissioners.
Great job.
Yeah,
Thank you.
great job.
Great job also.
We did trash pickup a couple weeks ago, and when we walked, that's the way we walked, is up and over past Publix, did the walkover and came back, and I sent Robin a picture of the little fishing pier because it has been closed for quite a while.
It has, and it was because,
yeah,
yeah.
and he said you were working on it, so great job. I think that they need to both be replaced.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I mean, I live right there across the street, and there is someone, I don't think I won't say ever because someone will ask me for a records request on that, but hardly ever do you see that park without somebody in it. And the police, they also patrol it, so they're there quite a bit, so it would be very well used.
Other commissioners?
Do they still have weddings going on there too? I know they did in the past before.
I don't think we've ever had a wedding over there. No, we've never had a wedding over there. There's not enough parking over there for that. I mean, absolutely, I think it'd be a beautiful
Maybe
place for
just
that.
parties over there. Okay, yeah.
Probably, yeah. I mean, it's It's a quaint little park that you kind of could pass up easily if you didn't really know that it was there, but it's just kind of serenity over there almost.
Great job doing your research also.
Thank you.
That's a big difference in money.
It's a huge difference, yeah. When I saw that today, I said, yes.
So this will come up to a vote?
Yes, I'll bring it back to the January meeting.
Okay.
Great. And the mayor asked a primary question, does it get used? And then we've had verification, so,
Yep.
very good. Thank you.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Okay, reports and correspondence. Board of Commissioners, you have anything? City Attorney.
Oh, the only thing I'd have is Merry Christmas to everyone. Have a great holiday.
Same to you and your family.
Thank you.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to again, not again, but just to thank all of you for attending the activities and events over the last couple of weeks. There have been quite a few. There'll be a few more before the end of the year, and then we'll jump into 2024 where we have our largest event in the city in terms of number of people, the Seafood Festival, from Friday, January 19th to Sunday, January 21st. But I do want to thank you for wonderful 2023, just a few weeks left to go. Certainly wish all of you and your families a very happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. And the staff and I definitely do appreciate all of your continued support. Lots of projects coming forward in 2024, and we'll be seeing the completion of hopefully several of them. And we're hoping it's a busier year than 2023, and certainly Madeira Beach is taking a very good look as to where we're going. We're excited about the master plan and the visioning and taking a look at all that we'll start in January at the workshop with. It's certainly hopefully where we are and exactly where we are heading and hiring, issuing the RFP for the consultant. So as always, we definitely appreciate all of your support. Want to thank you very, very much, and let us know, obviously keep letting us know and letting me know of anything needing attention as always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. City Clerk.
Like, wish everybody happy holidays. And we've had a wonderful year. I think we got a wonderful team, and I look forward to working with everybody again next year.
Okay, well, thank you.
And I do want to remind everybody that the January meeting, the regular meeting, is 2:00 p.m.
All right, thank you.
2 p.m. on Wednesday, January 10th.
Okay, well, it's.
I would like to add real quick,
Oh,
I'm
please.
sorry. Great job for Krabby putting on our 57th annual boat parade. That was amazing. We had over 40 boats show up, he said, and each one was designed great. And I just want to say, Madeira Beach, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you.
Absolutely. Time is 4:12 p.m. If we have nothing else, we will adjourn.
Merry Christmas.
Yes.